Folks, you definitely won't need your sunglasses for this one, because Quantum of Solace is the darkest James Bond movie ever. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Countdown to Bond 25 here on Thumb Together. My name is Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. And dear Lord, turn on a light because it's too dark in here. Why is it too dark in here? Because we're talking about Quantum of Solace, baby. Released in November of 2008, Quantum of Solace does something that no James Bond movie has ever done before. It picks up where the last one left off. What a novel concept. Yes, James still has the mysterious Mr. White locked in the trunk of his car, and he's escaping Mr. White's agents, and he gets Mr. White to M, and then this great chase scene ensues that, in my opinion, takes the already amazing parkour chase scene from the beginning of Casino Royale and tops it in every way. And Bond gets wrapped up and tangled up in another mystery that leads him to more of Mr. White's associates as we learn more and more about the shadowy organization that blackmailed Vesper Lynd, the only woman who was able to get to James Bond's gooey caramel center. When it comes to the songs, this time I'm very glad that they didn't choose to actually name the song Quantum of Solace, because that would be a pretty silly song title. Instead, we have a song called Another Way to Die, and it is sung to us by Jack White and Alicia Keys, the team up you never knew you wanted until you got it, and now you can't look away. Because as far as this guy is concerned, Another Way to Die is one of the best James Bond songs out there. And I think I'm in the minority when I say that. A lot of people don't care for this song. I think it's great. I think of all the songs that this whole franchise has ever made, it's the one that most accurately describes what it is like to live day by day as a 00 agent. Spoilers, it's not a pleasant existence. Now, I mentioned off the top here, this is the darkest, grittiest, most somber James Bond movie of all time by a wide margin, and you are given a taste of what you're in for right here in the opening credits, because the opening credits are full of sand. Sand. It is literally a giant mound of grit. If that doesn't tell you you're in for a gritty motion picture, I don't think anything will. And I think Quantum of Solace should hold the record as just the most gritty piece of cinema ever. Probably. We have another series first, and I think this one is really interesting, and we'll get to why later. But this is the first time, and so far only time, in the entire franchise where James Bond does not have sex with the leading lady. They part as pals at the end of the day. It's so dark and gritty, nobody even wants to get naked anymore. So let's talk about those ladies. First, there is our secondary Bond lady, Strawberry Fields, played by Gemma Arterton. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could the grittiest movie ever made possibly have a woman in it named Strawberry Fields? Well, they don't actually say her name out loud. She just refers to herself as Miss Fields. And when James Bond even asks her, what's your first name? She says, just Fields. But according to the actual guide to Quantum of Solace and all the resources I found, she is actually named Strawberry Fields. And Miss Fields meets a brutal end that is reminiscent of the movie Goldfinger. In Goldfinger, Tilly Masterson got covered with gold paint until she suffocated. In Quantum of Solace, Strawberry Fields gets covered with pitch black oil until she suffocates. Her lungs are full of it. I love whenever the Daniel Craig era films have done these little touches that are like small or sometimes big callbacks to classic Bond stuff, and I hope we get more of them in No Time to Die. Frankly, I hope we get more of them just in future Bond films, because it'll be nice to see how they take something iconic like that and translate it to the modern day, so it's a little bit different, but samey enough that you know exactly what they're referencing. The main leading lady of the show is Camille, played by Olga Kurilenko. And cards on the table, everybody. When it comes to the James Bond women that I find the most attractive, I'm putting Camille at number one. Camille is a stone-cold, beautiful woman. So that's why I find it all the more ironic that she is the only main leading lady in the entire franchise that James Bond does not sleep with. And the reason is, Camille has her own demons she's fighting. She is on a parallel path, and though her and Bond become allies, and yeah, they even smooch at one point, it's more platonic than anything else. See, Camille's deal is her entire family was murdered and in some particular cases even raped by one of the main villains, so Camille is just out for revenge. She just wants to get back at the guy who did this, and if that means she has to consort with some unsavory people to do so, by God, she will consort. And James Bond finds her mid-consort, and they realize that it's in their best interests to work together to stop these fiends once and for all. So let's take a look at those fiends right now. First, there's a henchman named Elvis. And again, just like with Strawberry Fields, you have a ridiculously named character, but his name is never said out loud. He's just a henchman who's just walking around the movie with this bad haircut. And if you look him up, his character's name is Elvis. So there's that. But our two main villains are the focal point here. First, there's General Medrano, played by Joaquin Coslo. Medrano is this scummy general who is a dictator who, takes over governments and loves to kill and maim. And he's the one who is responsible for the brutal murder and rape of the members of Camille's family. He is the one that Camille swears to unleash her holy vengeance upon. And our main villain is Matthew Almerich's character, Dominic Green, who is underwhelming as far as Bond villains go because there's really nothing special about him. He's just a little French guy with wild Smeagol eyes who wants to control water so that he can extort poor people and sell water at exorbitant rates. A very realistic villain. He is doing things that villains in the real world are doing all the time. I'm looking at you, CEO of Nestle. Yeah, I went there. And again, keeping in tradition with the extraordinarily dark subject matter of Quantum of Solace, the way he is dispatched is quite possibly the most gruesome way any Bond villain has been dispatched. James Bond gets the best quote of the film this time. He and Strawberry Fields are supposed to be undercover as teachers on sabbatical. However, Miss Fields decides to take the cover story a little too far, and she arranges for them to stay in a cheap hotel. James Bond has never been one for cheap hotels. He can't stand the place. So instead, he takes them to the most expensive hotel around, and she says, we're supposed to be teachers on sabbatical. How on earth is this going to add up with our cover story? And James Bond shows her exactly how by marching up to the front desk and saying, hello, we are teachers on sabbatical, and we have just won the lottery. Yeah. A great little thing about Quantum of Solace is that Jeffrey Wright returns to reprise his role as Felix Leiter, and it's the first time since David Hedison that we have had an actor return to play Felix for a second time. Jeffrey Wright is a magnificent Felix. He is just as dark and edgy and gritty as Daniel Craig's Bond, so they complement one another really well. And what makes me excited is that even though he's absent from Skyfall and Spectre, we're finally getting Jeffrey Wright back as Felix in No Time to Die, which means he will hold the record for the person who has played Felix Leiter the most amount of times. I wish I had a genuine Felix Leiter that says to James, love Felix and Della, so that I could hold it up in the theater and just go like this when Jeffrey Wright shows up on screen. When I first saw Quantum of Solace, I walked away not disappointed, but definitely feeling like what I saw was a huge step down from Casino Royale. And in many cases, yeah, I guess you could say it is. This movie was being made during the infamous writer's strike of 2008, and it shows because the writing is all over the map. It also happens to be the shortest James Bond movie. It's only 106 minutes long, which doesn't sound short, but remember, most James Bond films sail north of 2 hours. In fact, the Daniel Craig Bond films are all the longest films in the franchise, except Quantum of Solace, which happens to fall completely on the other end. It's the shortest. So you can feel that something about this movie was different. There's almost a bite taken out of it. It doesn't feel incomplete, but it does feel like they wanted to do more and they couldn't. However, upon further rewatches of Quantum of Solace, I've garnered an appreciation for how well it complements Casino Royale. James Bond's character arc that began in Casino Royale doesn't really come to fruition until the end of Quantum, until he has confronted the man who used to date Vesper Lynd and found out what a scumbag he is, and dealt with Mr. White, and started to learn more about this organization called Quantum and what they are doing in the shadows, and finally, at the end of it all, taking that Algerian love knot that he got from Vesper and throwing it down into the snow, which looks like very ashen, gritty snow, because that's the kind of movie this is, and walking away with a clearer head than he had at the end of Casino Royale, ready to resume work as a 00 agent. You need this as a sort of coda, as an addendum to Casino Royale. This is the endgame to its Infinity War. And while some may find its short runtime and uninspired villain to be pretty underwhelming, I can dig that, but I can also dig and respect the idea that this was not trying to be a bombastic endgame-esque climax to the already very long and epic Casino Royale. This was meant to be a quiet, intensely dark and brooding culmination of all those swirling romantic emotions that were going on between Bond and Vesper, which leads to Bond becoming the, let's put our cards on the table here, very tragic and very dark figure that this character is supposed to be. James Bond, as much as we love Roger Moore, James Bond is not meant to be a happy-go-lucky dandy in colorful clothes who's always smiling and winking at the camera. He's like everybody's lovable dad. No, that's not Bond. Bond is a harsh, brusque son of a bitch at the end of the day. He is not a good person to be around. Even though he does good things for the good of the world, he's nobody's friend. That leads to a very bleak existence. And if you're telling the origin story to that kind of existence and you want to do it properly, you need it to be a very bleak story. And baby, Quantum of Solace is the bleakest of the bleak. So even though it's the shortest Bond film, even though of all the Craigs it really sticks out and feels different, even though it feels like a bite's been taken out of it, and the Bond villain is not very memorable, and it pales in comparison to Casino Royale that came before and Skyfall that comes after, it is worth holding up in the annals of great Bond stories because of what it does for Bond the character. So now that the two-part character piece is out of the way, how do we move forward with a franchise that has never really moved anywhere? The answer lies at the end of the rainbow, that is Skyfall. See you tomorrow when the countdown to Bond 25 continues.